Welcome back, everybody, to Founders Corner. Today, I have Doug Moranan on as a guest with me, and he is a VP of Marketing and Sales, primarily in sales. And I love talking to Doug because of the insight that he brings for the fact that he's worked with so many startups, and he's able to bring the insight of his experience working with startups and founders, especially, and being able to give us some tips and tricks on what it is that we can do as founders differently so that we can actually make sure our sales team goes out there and actually crushes it. All right, so big round of applause for Doug. Doug, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Sapir. I appreciate it. Happy to be here and excited. I enjoy our conversation, so thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here. So thank you for making the time, and I can't wait for our founders to actually get some experience out of you, because when you and I talked, I think at one point I was like, I should have just hit record right now. Great conversation. So I was like, Doug, I have to bring you on this podcast. So Doug, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? What got you into sales? Why do you? Because you've gone to about 4 startups now, right?
Yeah, thank you. And I think, there's folks out there in your audience and founders out there that are dealing on a lot of different levels. I mean, some are looking for investment, some are, mine were probably a bit smaller in comparison, but I think the dynamics are the same. It's an exciting time. The whole conversation that you and I are having, it was spurred by a post that you had that was basically, you're a founder and you're looking to expand or add or bring on a salesperson, and that's an exciting time in your business. That's an exciting time in your growth. But that comes from a salesperson's perspective, a sales manager's perspective, that should come with a lot of thought, forethought. And that's this mistake. I mean, to boil this down, and we'll dig a little deeper, to boil this down, I think that's where folks fall short. That's thing. So my background is with 4 different companies that basically I was in essence their first sales hire, so I can speak from experience.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed with, I would say, most founders that I've dealt with is they almost lean they lean heavily on the sales guy. Right, they bring the sales, they bring their first sales leader, and they kind of assume that they'll just take over, right? And so, my conversation with you on LinkedIn was exactly the opposite of that. It should be the founder should be selling, and that sales guy needs to come and learn from the founder. And you kind of agree with that. So why don't you expand on that a little bit with me?
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to, again, it's an exciting time. Founders, I think, by nature, want to see movement, right? They don't like to. So all the folks that I've worked with, again, 4 times I've been that first sales hire. So they want to get things moving. They want to get things going quickly. And, it's important to ramp up. And
almost that's when they hire that sales guy, right? Like, it's almost like, oh no, I need more sales.
Well, true. It is sometimes a reactive situation. The difference is, what you really have to do is you have to dial back and say, why am I bringing this person on, and what exactly? And this is something that I wasn't early in my career. I didn't have the experience to ask. If I was being brought in now, I would ask the question and say to them, okay, well, define or explain to me what exactly, when you say sales, it's too general of a term.
Yes, way too general.
Right? So what does this person look like? What does their role look like? What's their day look like? What's their responsibility? Where do you really see them helping you?
Yeah.
That's the questions founders have to ask. They can't just say, it's time for me to bring on a salesperson.
Yeah.
They have to say, what is this? Where is this person, and how is this person going to help me? Because ultimately, you might not need a full-time salesperson. What you might initially need is someone who is a account manager.
Yes.
who is able to talk about additional products and services, and that's kind of like customer service, account management. That's not a salesperson. So in my world, when you say that you want a salesperson, that means you want someone focused on all sales all the time.
So it's actually funny you say that, because I do recognize the fact that not all salespeople are good at everything, right? And you and I kind of have
Right.
a conversation. And one thing I'll tell you right away is when we originally started Korner, I had my partner Bob come in, and the first thing I said to him, I said, look, I can sell. What I cannot do is go into a networking event and be able to open those doors, because that's just not my personality type, right? And him and I kind of had that like tag team situation going where, you know, we both understood the role and we both understood the situation. And he would he would kind of introduce Cordo or talk to them and be like, look, you need to talk to my guy, Seth. And he'll hand it off to me, and I carry the relationship forward. So I love that you said that, because I do believe that founders need to understand where their biggest challenge is and where their biggest strategic advantages.
Yeah, and that's where, and that was kind of the next step that we were talking about. Is okay, what? No, that's okay. No, you're great. I mean, what is it that you want this person to do? Where is it you want them to help? Like, let's more clearly define what their role is going to be. Right. Is it inside sales? Is it outside sales? Is it a very, there are salespeople, and some organizations ideally you would get to the point where it is structured that way. Mm-hmm. But when you think of really successful organizations and you think of their sales team is solely focused on selling.
Yes.
They don't do customer service. They don't do account management. They don't. Now, when you're in a smaller company, I want to do all those.
Worst customer service people. Ever trust the customer service.
In my experience, I was lucky, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I actually was asked to do all of those things. I was asked to go out and get us a new customer, but then also take care of them,
manage them.
From a customer service standpoint, manage the account, do all of those things. In bigger organizations, if that's what you're growing to. So the answer where I'm going with this is, a lot of times people think we need to hire a seasoned salesperson. That's right. Well, if you're asking that person to do everything, do sales and customer service and account management and all these other things in addition to it, that's a different role. That's somebody, and you have to hire for that. So are they going to be inside? Are they going to be outside? Are they going to be solely focused on sales, or are they going to be asked to do, these other tasks? So once you get past that, I think, you hit the nail right on the head. Once you get past that, then it's up to, I think, the founder to decide, okay, the strengths and weaknesses. My strength is, Saper's strength is this. My weakness is X or Y, and that's where this person is going to come in and fill that gap.
I'm very good at nurturing, so that's my advantage. And then my biggest disadvantage is I cannot go to networking events, and we kind of joke around in the office on this. Like, Bob is our like dynamite. We go to networking events, and it's like fishing with dynamite. But I think what a lot of founders also struggle with is their lack of understanding of the sales cycle too, right? Because a lot of times is founders come out and they're industry experts. They fully understand the industry they're involved in, and they get it, they understand it, but they're not seasoned salespeople. And so they sell with passion, they sell with excitement, and that's great. That's how you start. You have to start that way. But then when the sales guy comes, they're like expecting the same from them, right? Like they're expecting, why aren't you as passionate? It's like, well, they're passionate about money, so.
Well, you and I, our last conversation, and I couldn't find the word, and I thought about it after we talked. And the best way that I can describe it is, you said, founders can sell and they're passionate. Yeah. So founders, I would say that they don't sell. Founders represent the company. Founders are the company. They live it, they breathe it. It's their baby, so to speak. That was you and I said that earlier. Right. but selling is a different thing. Selling is, there's a process, there's a methodology, there's, it's not about manipulation and things like that, but it's something that you have to do on a daily basis. And it is a skill set.
Yeah.
Founders don't necessarily, when they say, oh, well, I think the founder is the person who should be the most passionate about the company. They should be the most knowledgeable, and they should be willing to represent the company.
That's right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the ones who should be selling. And
nor so should they. When I say when they have to start selling, I meant like early stage, because realistically,
sure.
But yeah, you're right. After they start having that cash flow, they have to step away from that sales cycle.
And part of that cycle, or you can't get into that cycle until going back. You said nurturing, which is a great term. If you're bringing on somebody who you want to go out and help your company find new business and find new opportunities, and that is the first time you're hiring for that role, then you have to be prepared as a founder to spend a lot of time with them initially.
Oh, yes, bang on.
A lot. And I mean, like, hip pocket, they're your shadow. Right. I mean, because now, if you do that, your passion should transcend to them. They should get excited about the product or the service like you do, because they're spending time with you and they see how passionate you are about it, but they also see the benefits of it. They see why it works and it's exciting, and why why they should be excited about bringing it to people.
And that goes back to what you and I said, right? It's all about confidence. Like, sales guys need confidence to sell. And if they're confident about the product, they're confident about the company, they're confident about the founder, it's like, you'd be amazed at what they're able to do versus when that's not there, right? Like, you experience yourself.
Right. If you're confident, once you get to the point where you have a knowledge base and you truly are confident in how your product or service, the impact it has, and how it benefits a customer, how it can benefit a potential customer, you need that before you ever go in and make a sales pitch.
That's right.
So so that, I guess that would be the litmus test or the barometer that a founder, just my opinion, that would be the barometer or the litmus test that a founder would use to say, okay, can this person articulate? Can this person go in and truly expand on how this product or how our product or service is going to be impactful, how it's going to benefit this person's organization or business? Once that person gets to that point, then they can go out and start selling. If until that founder feels that they're there, then you shouldn't turn them loose necessarily. You should go with that, either go with them or do some. And the other thing that would circle back to, this is where we said some of the things. Do they speak with current customers? Do they go on site with a customer and maybe see the product or service in action on the user end, right? Do they do some mock sales calls? Do you have a training program? What tools are you going to give to them, and what direction are you going to give to them, and education are you going to give to them as they come on board? That's all things that you have to give some thought to.
Yeah, and I think what happens is, because founders are so bottlenecked with everything else that's happening operationally, software sides, I'll speak to software. But one of the biggest things is what happens is they hire reactively, right? And it's not to their fault. They're kind of boggled down. They're getting a lot of demos. Maybe they're not converting all those demos, or they're not even getting demos, right? And they're starting to panic, and they go, I have to hire someone. And what ends up happening is they hire a guy, and they kind of expect that guy to do everything.
Yeah.
Going back to specialization, like you and I kind of discussed. So what's your suggestion? Because you were in that scenario as well, but what's your suggestion on how to approach, like we said, there's different roles in sales, like, right? You got the, sales development reps, whose entire role is to literally make phone calls, make connections, and bring the deals to the account executives, right? And then you got the, sales engineering. You have so many different roles in sales. So how do you bring in a guy where you can kind of have proper expectations for, or like good at KPIs? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it all comes down to expectations. I mean, there are some tremendous sales professionals out there that I'm honored to know that have no interest in helping develop policy and procedure.
Yeah, that's
They have no interest in helping to map out how we should use the CRM, and none of that. They want to sell. That's all they want to do. So you can't. You have to make a decision whether or not you can or cannot hire that person. And you can't expect them to just turn into something that they're not.
Yeah.
Just because you're a startup.
Yeah.
So here's and here's where I would go with that. Sometimes even like, okay, I know a founder can't spend all day every day with their new hire, but most organizations, before they hire a sales someone for sales, has a customer service or some kind of person answering the phone, dealing with customers, right? I think it's fair to say, I mean, let's back up a second. You're bringing on a salesperson because you already have some customers and you think there's growth potential to go get more customers. Somebody's there helping those existing customers. Whoever that person is, the salesperson should be spending a lot of time with them too, because they're getting the calls from the customer that says, I'm having trouble with this. And they can tell you, listen, 9 times out of 10, this is the issue they're having with our software. 9 times out of 10, this is the issue they're having with our product, right?
It brings customer feedback. Like that is the perfect thing for marketing, to take that and convert that into the product, like translate it into the product. Yeah, you're right.
It really is. It really is. It's not that. It's really about founders having someone that they trust.
Yeah.
Challenge them to to better define. They can't just say sales.
Yeah.
I need to hire something. If you're just saying I want to hire somebody for sales, you're setting yourself up and your new hire up for failure.
So Doug, one question I have for you is, and this has happened to me in the past, and this is why I'm asking you. Salespeople also, they take the path of least resistance, right? That's like my opinion, but it's probably and you guys would agree with that. But so what happens is they get a lot of customer feedback on a regular basis, right? And good sales guys will be able to basically grab a customer's feedback and turn it into an opportunity. And there are some customer feedbacks where it's like, it's kind of ridiculous, and it's more of a here's a pushback, and they kind of take that pushback instead of really converting on the sales and like kind of selling the benefits or on value of the product. They kind of take that and go, okay, well, that's the problem with the product. Let me just go back to my dev team. They have to fix absolutely everything, and they're not really selling the value of the product, right? How do you, as a founder especially, because really early on, if you hire a bad sales guy, that's what's going to end up happening, is they just keep coming back to you and going, well, customers are asking for this or this or this, and he's not really selling, but he's getting more feedback than selling, right? How do you approach that scenario?
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate. Sales does get a bad rap, and there's people who continue to feed into that.
Wall Street for that one.
Yeah, well, yeah. And the fact of the matter is, selling with integrity and selling with, it doesn't mean that you say yes to everything. It doesn't mean you say no to everything. But a good salesperson, in my experience, and what I try to be, is a good listener.
Yes.
What is it? What is it you're looking for? What is it, the problem that you're trying to solve? I mean, that would be my question. If I was, if a founder called me tomorrow and said, Doug, I want you to help me figure out what it is I'm looking for in a salesperson, it's going to be me just basically questioning them in 15, 20 different ways about what it is they're looking for, what this person's going to be doing. So where I'm going with this is it's the same thing when the salesperson goes out to meet with a potential customer.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be about telling them all about the product and all about the service. It should be learning about their business, what issues and challenges that they're having, where can we fit, do we fit, but also then being honest to say to them, okay, listen, I think we can help with X, Y, and Z. And then eventually our software we're looking to add that feature, or we're looking to, so I will tell you this, if anytime you're making a sales hire, if there's a way, maybe that you could ask a question, you really do want to try to figure out, does this person sell with integrity? And by that, I mean, are they somebody who is just going to say yes to everything because they think that's going to get them the sale? That is not the person you want.
So here's, like, I kind of built a formula in my head when I approach sales guys now. Like, if I'm talking to a sales guy, I'm looking for 3 major things. And by the way, on the listening side, so massive. I think it was like when I was in university, just before I started my first company, I was working at Apple, and my manager came up to me and said, look, when you're selling, and Apple is like one of those relaxed scenarios, right? Like, it's kind of like, let everybody experience the product. That was the whole point of the stores, was an experience center. But we still had quotas we had to hit. And the guy came up to me, he's like, I want to watch you do a run through with the client. So I was doing the run through and everything. And, again, it comes down to let me tell you about the product. And this was like 15 years ago when, Apple was just becoming a big thing again because of the iPhone. So people, when they're approaching the computer, they were kind of like, this is a different system. And the first thing he said is, I want you to just shut up and listen, right? And he's like, you should be talking maybe 20% of the time, 80% of the time they should be talking, right? Because they're giving you valuable information as they speak, right? And as they're speaking, you're literally listening and utilizing what they're telling you to be able to approach the product in their way. Because you can't, if you don't listen, how are you going to know how are you going to sell a product to the client, right? They're giving you valuable information. So the 3 things I look at is do they listen, or do they rather talk? Do they like hearing their own voice, or do they like hearing other people's voice? Are they active listeners or reactive listeners? And what I mean by that is, like, a sales guy, like, if you're talking to me, I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm comprehending what you're saying, and then I'm responding to what you're saying if there's a response to be had. Whereas I find some sales guys, they'll listen, they're not actually processing what you're saying. They're actually thinking about the next thing they need to say, right? It's almost like a checkbox for them, but they're not actively listening. And then the third thing is how organized they are. Because I think really good sales guys, they're organized in the follow-up sense. They're very good at, like, keeping track of their clients, keeping a nice pipeline, follow-ups, all those things become critical. Because I think statistically, you have to have at least 8 follow-ups to really be able to get to a customer eventually, right? So it does take a lot of process, and I'll call it administrative work, and they hate saying that, but what are your thoughts on that? Because that's my 3 categories I kind of look at when I'm looking at a sales guy.
Yeah, and I not to stir the pot here, but we keep saying sales guys, salesmen and women. I mean, I gotta tell you, I've seen a lot of there's a reason a lot of women do very well at sales.
Yeah, I agree.
They're good listeners. They're good listeners. They're organized, right? And they care. They care. I've seen some female some sales women who are fantastic. I mean, they're salesmen and women.
By the way,
but
I agree with you 100% because they have a different personality, and I love that personality about the
thing too.
And we actually had more sales women than we did have guys at Korner because their approach is completely different.
And they're not, I think in your generations past, they weren't pushed into or encouraged to go into sales, and that's a shame because they're so we're seeing so much more of that, and that's wonderful. But ultimately, any sales, and I keep saying professionals, like I see sales, like there's salespeople, there's people who think they're in sales. It's a profession, and all the things you touched on, I would agree with, and I would tell you that if I'm 20 years now. That's learned. Like you're not. They say, "Oh, good salespeople are born with personality, and people are born that they're easy to talk to, where they're likable." That's all good and great, but the skill set is learned because there's no. I mean, I think it's University of Central Florida. It's actually a fellow I follow on LinkedIn. University of Central Florida is like one of the very first universities that I know of that has sales as a major.
Wow. Okay.
Where they teach it, like they teach you to be a salesperson and a sales manager, and I mean, it's for all of us.
Around sales, or is it like software? Is it like industry specific, or is it like general?
I believe it. I believe it's just general. I don't know if it's a major or if it's a course. It might just be a course. I don't know if it's an actual major. Forgive me. I should step back. But they're teaching. They're structuring a classes around how to be a salesperson.
That's actually amazing because there's a lot of methodology that goes behind sales. Like it's not.
It's 2020. It's 2023.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, anybody who's graduated, up until today or until they, has basically learned sales after they got out of school.
Yeah. True.
So so I was lucky. I was lucky to go and work for smaller companies where I was able to wear a lot of different hats and learn directly from the owners, the founders, and I had good mentors. And they taught me how to sell and sell with integrity and sell the right way, to not promise the world when you can't deliver. Those are things that you certainly want to look out for. But again, here's a great example. You said you like to look for someone who's organized. Mm-hmm. I would agree wholeheartedly. Well, let's drill down a little bit more. What does organized look like? Well, that means they're using their CRM. Yes. How often are they using it? What data are they putting into it? Right. So you can't just say to a salesperson, "Hey, I want to make sure you're using the CRM."
Yeah.
Well, no. What exactly? What data? Yeah. What data do you need me to input into there? Why is it important? How is it going to benefit me? Because here's the other thing. For every task you give them that is not related to, quote unquote, interacting with a potential customer, that's time away from selling. Yeah. So the longer I have to sit at my computer and do data entry into the CRM, that's one less phone call I can make to a potential customer. Yes. If you want me to help develop a policy and procedure, and that takes me a couple hours for a couple days for a couple weeks, that's less time that I have to make calls and go out and get new customers. Yeah. So every time you layer on something, like, you have to be realistic. Founders have to be realistic. If you're going to layer on other things, then you can't look at them and say, "Well, wait a second, how come you only made X number of calls or only had X number of appointments?" In fairness, you had them doing 20 hours worth of a week of work that had nothing to do with it, where they couldn't make calls, where they couldn't take me, right. So that's the temp. That's I think that it's really about founders really defining well-defined job, the expectations about what the job is going to entail. It's about founders kind of saving them from themselves, which is, I want this person to do this too, but you have to remind yourself as a founder and appreciate the sales role, that if I ask them to do this, that's time away from them making calls. That's time away from them prospecting. That's time away from them networking.
I love that you brought up the CRM thing, because that's always a point of friction between like marketing and founders and the administrative team with sales guys, right? And I think when we were talking, you hit it on the head when you said you have to express, not even tell, but express the value to the sales guy if he inputs the CRM correctly, and how that affects his sales cycles and how that affects his sales in general, because then they'll do it, right? They want to do better. They want the commit, like they want to sell. Like that's what they love to do. That's where they get the dopamine, right? Is selling and getting that validation. Yeah. So you have to express to them, hey, like when you're putting in the sales lead, we're trying to figure out where the leads are coming from so that we can bring you more leads. We can invest more into that channel. right? And that right away is a trigger to them going, oh, wow, I want more leads. Absolutely, I'm going to do that. Like,
Right. Well,
even
and
in software, just to add this, when customers come to us and say, I want to build a CRM system, we are constantly thinking, how can we simplify it so much that the sales guy barely has to think? Because we know that's a challenge.
So it is, and I'll give you. It's so funny. I had a big smile on my face because it's the first time I've actually thought of it. First time I've actually thought of it this way. If you remember the Karate Kid, right?
Yeah.
When wax on, wax off, paint the fence, he has him doing all these tasks, but he doesn't understand why he's doing them.
That's right.
Right? And then he finally has this aha moment where he, Mr. Miyagi shows him that this is what wax on, wax off, this is paint the fence. This is why and how it's applicable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but when he's doing it, he has no idea why he's doing it, and it's irritating the heck out of him. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's how salespeople feel. Yeah. When you ask us to do something, but we have no idea why you're asking us to do it, or how it's applicable, or how it's going to come back to help us.
Yeah.
It's just time away from selling. That's how we see it. We see it as time away. That's just time away. They're taking time away from me and my opportunity to sell. Right. So here's the thing. If you have in the CRM a how did you hear about us field, like where did the lead come from? Okay. And you tell them that it has to be filled in and it has to be noted and we need to track this. Okay. They won't. And 3 months go by and you never come back to the sales team and say to them, hey, just so you know, we pooled all of the data for the last 90 days and X number of our leads came from here. This is the breakdown of where our leads came from. If you never report back to them on that, they'll never use it.
Yeah, they'll never use it.
Because if they don't, because you have, and that's not the sales. I'm defending the sales team, right?
As you should.
It's not the sales team's fault.
No,
it's not the sales team's fault. You asked us to put all this information in. We did, and then you never came back to us and showed us how it was useful.
Like I said,
so I'm not going to do it.
Those guys take the path of least resistance. So if they don't see value in it, they're not gonna keep pursuing it. But
if I'm in the office and one of my colleagues walks by me and says, "Hey, listen, I just got 3 leads from this group on LinkedIn."
Yeah,
I'm going to join that group on LinkedIn.
100%. That's your first instinct,
right? I'm going to say, what's the name of that group again? I'm going to join it, right? Because I see it's working for that. So if you come back to us and you say, hey, Doug, listen, our leads from this, and that's again, then now that folds over or spills over to marketing. You see that you're getting a lot of leads from this source. Well, hey, we need to allocate more dollars to that, and get in theory, we'll get more leads and more activity for the salespeople and this, that, and the other. So it's all about intent. It's all about purpose. It's all about, and founders are really good about that, but you can't be, when it comes time, I think, in short, when you and I were talking, when it comes time to bring on when it comes time that you want to bring on somebody who's more sales oriented, you really have to stop and think and take the time to say, okay, what exactly is it that I'm looking for this first quote unquote sales hire to do? Right. And it's okay. And I got to tell you, probably expected that person will be selling, providing customer service, providing some account management. They will be doing more things than just sales. And if you find the right person, and that's, I think, where my opportunities have come from. Yeah. My opportunity, the reason why I've gone from one, growing company starting, each company that I've joined has either been starting out or has been in that phase where they've gotten to a point where now it's time to hire a salesperson. Yeah. And I was that person. The reason I think that I was given that opportunity where others weren't is because I was comfortable coming in and saying to them, oh yeah, I've done trade shows. Oh yeah, I've done networking events. I've done, right. So I've done sales and all these other ancillary functions that you don't really have somebody to fill right now.
Yeah.
But once it came time, I did marketing. I did, but the nice thing about it was in most of those companies, as we grew and we could get to the point where we could afford to bring on somebody who just did marketing,
Right.
we hired somebody, yeah. And then as I went out and got more customers and the company grew a little bit more, we went out and got somebody who just did account management.
Yeah.
We got some,
The progress is always you hire generalists at the beginning, then those generalists become the managers, and then you start hiring specialists, right?
And you're that first sales hire. I remember somebody I worked with. She was very good. She was a very good salesperson, but at the end of the day, she liked the customer service part of it more than anything.
Yeah.
Right? She didn't necessarily like being on the road as much. She wanted to be in the office. She liked being more in the office and more home based kind of thing. So we looked at that and we said, okay, listen, she did a wonderful job selling, but her real passion or what she really enjoys is customer service. And we're going to make her the customer service manager, and she's going to hire 2 people for customer service, and she will take over that. So that's now her department.
Yeah.
So, and then we went out and hired a salesperson to fill that spot where she was previously. So all those things, it's all going to evolve. It's an exciting time again, what an exciting time for a founder, right? We've got growth potential. I need somebody to help me with that. That's great. That's all good things. But on the way to doing that, and as you get ready to bring that person on, take the time to make sure you really think it through. What do I need this person to do? Am I going to ask them to do? That's the number one question. Yep. And that's okay. And that's okay. And the answer is probably yes. But the number one question is, am I going to ask this person to do other things outside of strictly selling? And if the answer is yes, then you need to define that and say, okay, this is and this is the other. Yeah. And again, like you said, the 80-20, right? Listen, listen 80% of the time, talk 20. It's the same thing. How much time? Okay, I need this person to do this, this, and this, but I want to make sure that 50% of their time is dedicated to just selling. Right? Well, then you tell them. You say, I don't want to see you in the office on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And you let them do that. Go ahead. No, that's it.
So Doug, if you were to give one advice, I mean, we're coming up on our time here, so I don't want to keep you too much. But if you were to give one advice to a founder, like if you were to say, this is what you should, like, think early stage, right? Think when they're about to hire you for the first time, first sales guy on the team. What is the number one advice you give them?
Patience.
Okay, I like that. Okay. Do you want to expand on that?
It's not because if you get the right person, it's not because we're not trying. Okay? Believe me. We want to see that commission check.
Yeah.
I would tell you we're not as money driven as some are, but most of us, we enjoy the process. We enjoy going from start to finish and getting that deal done. It's a nice feeling, right? But if in this situation specifically, the one that you and I, that got you and I talking, we're talking about that first sales hire.
Yeah.
If you've got the right person, and you'll know if you do, you have to be patient with them. You have to be patient with them to learn your business, to learn the intricacies of your business. You have to be willing to spend the time with them and answer questions for them. You have to make other people within the organization available to them to do the same thing.
Yep.
You have to be patient with them as they lose deals potentially in the beginning. Like you and I talked about this last time.
Yeah.
You have to be patient in the sense that if they come back and they didn't get a deal, okay, let's dig into why. What was the customer's reasons? What were the reasons that they gave you? What were the reservations? What features did they say we didn't have? It wasn't that they didn't like the salesperson. And I'll turn this around. Let me turn this around again. I have lost deals to other salespeople that I know the customer doesn't particularly like.
Yeah.
They like me better.
Yeah. Doesn't mean yeah.
But they like it, but his or her product checked more boxes for them.
Yeah, that's right.
Solve more pain points for them. So I have gone in and said to myself, I've left, got in the car, shaking my head, and said to myself, they don't even like that person.
Yeah.
That's other salesperson. They've pretty much told me they don't even like him or her, but their product or solution was a better fit.
Right.
Okay, so it's great so it's not that somebody doesn't like, founders, I think sometimes they get ahead of themselves, right? It's not because the salesperson is not trying. It's not because the salesperson said something they shouldn't have said. It's not because the salesperson isn't likable. Okay, it takes time. It takes time to fill that funnel. It takes time to get them educated to where they can they can dance with the customer. Anytime the customer brings up an objection, they can say, well, that's, we actually do have a solution for that, right?
Yep.
It takes time, and it will not happen as quick. No matter what your timeline is, it won't happen as quickly as you want it to. So be patient. If you do feel that you have the right person, trust your gut. This is the right person. Don't jump to conclusions with, like I said, all those reasons I said that, that they must have done something wrong, or maybe the customers don't like them, or what. Nah, if your gut tells you the customers don't like them, then yeah, make a change. But that would be my number one. That would be my number one piece of advice, because that salesperson, believe me, if you're a founder and you're feeling a little frustrated, or you're feeling like it's not happening fast enough, the salesperson feels that way too. The salesperson feels that if you're a founder and you say, "Oh man, I wish this was happening fast enough, or why haven't we gotten any deals?" As a salesperson, I'm going home at night saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Why isn't this happening? Why am I not able to get more deals or close more deals? Right. That would be my number one.
Awesome. Doug, thank you so much for being here. I agree with that 100%, by the way. Patience is key. But thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I know our founders are going to take a lot of value from what we had the conversation about today, because hiring a sales guy and even selling itself is a sticky point for 99% of the founders. So I'm sure they're going to walk away with great value from this conversation. So thank you so much. We have to have you back on this podcast. You have way too much wisdom to keep in your.
Well, I enjoy these conversations, and it's always exciting. Like I said, it's fun to be a part. It's fun to be a part of that time where a company really is like. Yeah. I always it's a little sad in the early stages. Companies they celebrate every single win, right?
That's right.
And there's always it's a little unfortunate, right? It's a little unfortunate because there always is a time in the growth of a company where all of a sudden somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I got a new account today," and everybody's like, "Oh, yeah, okay." They're not as excited as they were in the beginning. And in the beginning, every win is celebrated, and I think that's wonderful. And that would be another piece of advice.
It's all a fun experience.
Celebrate every win. Yeah. Celebrate anytime somebody comes in and is able to announce that they have brought on a new customer. That's a good day. And whether that's the first year in the business or 10th year in the business, make sure you continue to celebrate those wins. So good luck to your audience out there. I mean, you founders are, brave people. I'm not one of, I've been that first sales hire, but I've never been the guy to take the plunge and go out on my own, and start a business. So all the credit in the world to your audience there.
Thank you. And I'm sure they're thanking you as well for that. And so, anyways, Founders Corner, everybody, thank you so much for being here and listening to Doug and I talk. Like I said, Doug is experienced. He's already worked with 4 startups. So take everything he says to heart, because it's true. I advocate for him on those comments. And if you have any questions, any thoughts, please let us know down below in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this episode, or share with anyone that you believe can take take advantage of this content, we'd love to hear from them. Until next time, Korner out.